Breaking tonight, the Middle East may be moving closer to a moment that could change everything. What if the most dangerous operation in the region is not the one the world has seen, but the one that may already be ready behind closed doors? Because tonight, the fear is no longer just about Iran's nuclear sites. The fear is about timing. The fear is about movement. And the fear is about one terrifying possibility. What if enriched uranium is moved before the world can stop it, inspect it, or contain it?
Everything in Iran was in peaceful use. So as to whether there was a short distance or a long distance to manufacturing nuclear weapon, I would not get into that, but it is clear that there were some elements of concern. Also, the accumulation of a very big stockpile of highly enriched uranium, very close to military grade degree, without
If that risk is real, then this is no longer just another diplomatic standoff. It becomes a countdown. A countdown tied to Natanz, to Fordow, to Isfahan, to the wider chain around them, and to the chilling possibility that while the public is still watching speeches and headlines, the real decision-makers may already be working from a very different clock. This is the uranium countdown. And if the current signals mean what some fear they mean, then the next few days could matter more than the last few years. For months, maybe longer, the world has focused on the visible pressure. Warnings, monitoring, statements, red lines, diplomatic language, international concern. On the surface, it looks like a familiar crisis. Another standoff. Another cycle of pressure and response. Another round of headlines about nuclear tension in the Middle East. But behind every public crisis, there is always a second story. The private story. The one told in secure rooms. The one built out of timing, uncertainty, contingency planning, and one question no government ever wants to face too late. What happens if the material moves before anyone can react? That is where the entire atmosphere changes. Because once the issue becomes movement, everything else becomes secondary. Then it is not just about diplomacy. It is not just about military signaling. It is not just about whether a facility exists, or how fortified it is, or what politicians say on camera. It becomes about seconds, routes, windows, control, and whether the world is already closer to the edge than anyone wants to admit. Now here is where this story gets darker. When people hear nuclear crisis, they imagine missiles, airstrikes, explosions, and visible escalation. But the most dangerous phase often begins much earlier than that. It begins quietly. A routine changes. A convoy pattern shifts. A storage assumption no longer feels safe. An intelligence picture becomes less stable. A chain that looked fixed starts to look flexible. And that is the moment serious people stop asking broad questions and start asking terrifyingly specific ones. What is being protected? What is being prepared?
What is no longer where it was expected to be?
And once those questions are on the table, nobody in that room thinks in abstract terms anymore. Because if enriched uranium is stationary, the world has one kind of problem. If it is dispersed, concealed, or repositioned, the world has another. And if there is even a narrow chance that a critical stockpile could move before oversight catches up, then history can stop feeling distant very quickly. That is when the language changes. No one says, "This is interesting." No one says, "Let's wait and see." They start asking, "How much time is left?" And if that question is being asked at the highest level, then the public version of this story may only be seeing the outer layer. Now pause for a second, because this is where the real fear enters the room. The central fear is not always destruction. Sometimes the central fear is access. Who gets there first? Who verifies first? Who controls the material first? Who prevents the next phase before it begins? That is why stories like this become larger than one site, one country, or one military option. Because nuclear material changes the meaning of delay. In most crises, time can calm things down. In a crisis like this, time can make things worse. And that is why the most dangerous plans in the world are not built by people who sound dramatic. They are built by people who sound calm. They reduce risk into timelines, into thresholds, into contingency windows, into one brutal sentence. If the order comes tonight, are we ready? That is not fantasy. That is how strategic pressure actually feels behind closed doors. Cold, precise, silent, and far more dangerous than the speeches seen on television. If a plan exists for a scenario like this, it would not be something invented overnight. It would not be improvised in panic. It would not be made up at the last second because a headline suddenly changed. No. A plan like that would already be structured, already reviewed, already debated, already challenged, already refined, built around roots, risk, timing, escalation, and one final condition. Does the evidence cross the line? That is the part the public almost never sees. The mission that never launches can still shape policy. The operation that remains on paper can still change deterrence. The contingency that is never officially acknowledged can still haunt every person who knows it exists. Because once something becomes plausible enough to prepare for, it changes the room forever. And if that room has already changed, then the next few days may not be about building a plan. They may be about deciding whether to use one.
Now imagine the pressure on the people carrying that burden.
Imagine being the analyst who has to say whether the material is still where it is believed to be. Imagine being the planner who has to estimate whether a delay of 24 hours changes everything. Imagine being the decision maker who knows that acting too soon could trigger a historic disaster, but acting too late could mean losing control of the entire chain. That is not just intelligence work. That is moral pressure. Because every option is bad. Every move carries consequences. Every delay creates risk. And every miscalculation can spill far beyond one facility, one state, or one region. That is why the public often misunderstands crises like this. People think the real threshold is attack. It is not. Often the real threshold is something quieter. A movement, a disappearance, a pattern break, a signal that the visible picture may no longer be the real picture. And once that possibility becomes real enough, even the absence of action starts to feel like a decision. So let me ask you directly. If you believed there was even a small chance that dangerous enriched uranium could disappear into a darker chain beyond public oversight, would you wait for perfect certainty? Or would you prepare before it was too late? Write your answer in the comments, because that is not just a political question. That is a human question. And it is exactly the kind of dilemma that can shape history before the public even realizes a countdown has begun. Now here is the twist that makes this story even more dangerous. What if the visible stock is not the whole picture? What if the world's attention is fixed on the most obvious sites, while the truly critical chain is more layered, more dispersed, and more ambiguous than anyone wants to admit? What if what looks clear from the outside is far less clear from the inside? What if the signal itself is incomplete? Or worse, what if the signal is misleading? That possibility freezes even the most aggressive planning. Not out of weakness, out of seriousness. Because with nuclear material, half certainty is not enough. No responsible decision-maker wants to move on a scenario this big without confidence. But here is the catch. No responsible decision-maker wants to be late either. And that is why the zone between uncertainty and urgency is the most unstable place in geopolitics. It is where the worst decisions are feared, and where the most powerful plans are created. Because by the time the public says, something is happening, the people in the deepest rooms may already be asking a very different question.
If the order comes tonight, how long until the rest of the world realizes the decision was already made? That is how real strategic pressure works. The public thinks action begins with movement. In reality, movement often begins long after the true story starts. The true story starts in silence, in review sessions, in intelligence updates, in maps spread across tables, in airspace calculations, in route analysis, in risk assessments, in documents so dry they almost look harmless, until you understand that every line inside them is trying to answer the same impossible question. What if tomorrow is too late? And once that question takes over the room, there is no easy way back. Because now the crisis is no longer theoretical. Now it has shape. Now it has timing. Now it has consequence. Now it has a clock. And somewhere inside that clock, one place keeps pulling attention toward itself. Natanz. Not because it is the only site that matters, not because everything begins and ends there, but because once a site becomes symbol, infrastructure, and strategic pressure point all at once, it stops being just a location. It becomes a marker in time. If the material is there, timing matters. If it is not there, timing still matters. If it can move, timing matters more than anything. And that is why this story feels so heavy. Because a viewer at home can experience it as a headline. A government can experience it as a security problem. But inside the room where real consequences are weighed, it becomes something else entirely. A burden. The burden of deciding whether the world is looking at a warning or at the final narrow window before a crisis becomes unavoidable. And this is exactly where the countdown becomes most dangerous. If current signals are weak, the world steps back. If current signals are misleading, decision-makers hesitate. If current signals are incomplete, everyone waits. But if current signals are real, really real, then the next move may not come with much warning at all. That is what makes this story feel so unstable. The distance between calm and chaos may be much smaller than it appears. The distance between diplomacy and irreversible momentum may be only one intelligence update wide. The distance between not happening and already underway may be thinner than the public is prepared to believe. And if that thought is uncomfortable, it should be. Because dangerous nuclear material is not just another strategic asset. In the wrong chain, under the wrong pressure, during the wrong window, it becomes one of the most destabilizing forces in the modern world. It can turn fear into escalation. Escalation into confrontation. Confrontation into regional shock. And regional shock into something far more difficult to contain. That is why this story does not end with triumph. It ends with warning. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe the threshold is never crossed. Maybe the final signal never comes. Maybe the people holding the line decide uncertainty is still too high. Maybe diplomacy survives one more time. But maybe the opposite is also true.
Maybe the planning is already complete. Maybe the windows are already mapped. Maybe the contingencies are already prepared. Maybe all that remains is one final shift in the intelligence picture. One movement. One break in pattern. One sign that the clock has run out. And if that is the reality behind closed doors, then this is no longer a story about some distant future. This becomes a story about the next few days. Not because the public has been told, not because a government has confirmed it, but because history is often decided before the cameras understand what they are looking at. So here is the real question tonight. Are we watching another crisis that will fade? Or are we already inside the final days before a decision? Because if the current signals mean what some fear they mean, then the next few days may give the answer. Maybe the world steps back. Maybe the edge holds. Maybe this remains a warning. Or maybe the next few days reveal that what sounded impossible was already much closer than anyone wanted to believe. Will it happen, or will it not? That is the question hanging over everything tonight. And in a story like this, the most dangerous part is not always what the world can see. Sometimes it is what has already been prepared in silence. If you made it to the end, I want your honest view. Do you think the world is still in a phase of pressure and signaling? Or do you think we may be entering the final countdown before something bigger happens? Write your answer in the comments. And if you want more deep, cinematic, high-stakes stories told with urgency, pressure, and the hidden logic behind global crises, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because the next story may not begin with an explosion either. It may begin with a room, a map, a file, and one sentence nobody inside that room can afford to ignore. What if tomorrow is too late?
If you want more high-stakes news stories like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, do you think the countdown has already begun?